Okay, it's 1800 hours, and I want to say welcome to Monday, November 17th, Common Council of the City of St. John. I apologize for my voice, but it's going, but Minnie Mouse is running your meeting tonight, I guess, so that's all we can do. So we start off every meeting with a land acknowledgement, and Councillor Killen is going to do that this evening for us. So, Councillor, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. The land on which the City of St. John, or Manaquest, is situated is the traditional territory of the Wolastoqey. The Wolastoqey, along with their Indigenous neighbors, the Mi'kmaq and the Pescatomakati, signed peace and friendship treaties with the British Crown in the 1700s that protected their rights to lands and resources. Let us pause.
Just pause and reflect for a few seconds. I ask everyone to stand for the national anthem, please. Okay, earlier today there was a problem in here and none of the mics were working. And they came in and they've got them fixed, but it's improved the sound quality. John, I don't know what happened, but that was excellent tonight. Okay, City Clerk, next item.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next on the agenda is item 2.1, approval of minutes from November the 3rd.
November 3rd minutes. Councillor Darling and Councillor Killen on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next is approval of the agenda, and we do have 3 additions from Committee of the Whole. So those would be adding item 17.1, 2022 Memorial Cup Legacy Fund transfer. Item 17.2, extension of group benefit coverage to council. And item 17.3, CAO interim position.
Okay, I'll take them over. We'll let Councillor Radwan and the deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is disclosures of conflict of interest, if we have any.
Councillor Killen.
I think I was not present for the...
Right, 10-1.
Yeah, 10-1.
Okay, noted. Councillor Radwan.
Mine is 10-1 as well.
Thank
Mayor.
you. And I also wasn't present for 10-1, so the 3 of us will remove ourselves from council chambers at that item. Okay, next item, City Clerk.
And next is the consent agenda.
Deputy, over to you, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd move 5.1 through to 5.55.
Okay, I'll take a seconder. Councillor Killen on the question. Councillor Sullivan, over to you.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just with regards to our update in 5.1 on the Housing for All strategy, is it possible to get a little prognosis? When the strategy came out November 17th, this was the date when I think we were originally told that we should have seen us on the other end. And I don't think we're on the other end. I'm a little frustrated, I guess, at seeing the progress. I do appreciate the updates. Is it possible to get a bit of an update?
Sure.
And, yeah.
Mr. Cutler, can you give us a bit of an update?
Thank you. Through your worship, Councillor Sullivan, thank you for the question. First of all, I'd like to point out the information in the infographic. It is dated November 7th, so some of that, data changes quite regularly. So that's where that infographic comes from. We have had success relocating encampments. Obviously, some are still a challenge in different areas. Currently, we have 11 red zone properties that still have encampments. So the outreach team is ramped up. They are on the ground and have individual plans with some of the people who may be more challenging to move along. We do plan to come back on December 1st with the infographic and a more thorough report kind of referencing the strategy. So that's sort of where we are now. We have seen good success. The outreach team is ramped up. They're on the ground daily, working with our Housing for All coordinator. It's a difficult file, but we are seeing progress.
Sorry, so if I remember correctly, it was a bit of a three-stage process. We were looking for voluntary compliance, and then a bit of a nudge and some help. And then the last thing we want to do, but if people don't comply, it would require enforcement. So I want to be clear for my expectations and for those who are watching. December 1st, we'll have a full briefing, updated numbers. Do you anticipate that there might be the need for that third level of compliance by that date?
So we have seen voluntarily, we've had some success with some movements and relocations. We do expect there will still be encampments on December 1st, but we'll be able to have sort of an individualized plan for almost tent by tent, to have a plan for these individuals and kind of let council know where we are at that point with those individuals.
Okay. Nope, thanks for the answer for tonight.
Thank you. Okay. All right, I'll call. So on the consent agenda, 5.1 to 5.4. On the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is item number 6, members' comments.
Members' comments. Councillor Stewart, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just want to make everybody aware that today is the official launch of the 2025 Give the Gift of Pro Kids holiday campaign. As I look around the room, there's quite a few people here who have a direct involvement or had a direct involvement or participate with Pro Kids. We are asking everybody on council, anybody who might be watching, all of staff to please share this message through your networks. Donate if possible. Pro Kids has set a pretty ambitious goal this year of $25,000, which would help support 100 children enroll in programs of various natures. So it may be ambitious, but it's absolutely doable. And we'd like to thank Councillor Lowe for his contribution, which was on the consent agenda to start it off. But again, if you can support it, please do, but spread the message. Give the gift of Pro Kids for Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Good message. Councillor Redwan, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just like to send out a special thank you to Minister Don Shepherd. He organized a Remembrance Day ceremonies over on the east side, and we don't have a Legion on the east side anymore, so it was wonderful that he took the time to do a great job organizing the ceremonies. I got to attend the Learning Exchange graduation with Mayor Reardon, actually, and I wanted to say congratulations to all the graduates this year. I always feel really motivated leaving these meetings, and a very special congratulations to Tyson Boucher, who is connected to somebody through my business. The City Art Board actually is currently looking for submissions for the city's art bank, and the deadline to put a submission in is December the 8th. So if you want details, you can actually connect to the email that's artsandculture@stjohn.ca or call customer service at 658-4455. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sullivan, over to you.
Thanks, Your Worship. First, and I know folks will be sad, it'll be the last night at council. You'll get to see this lovely mustache that's growing in if they can get the close-up. It is Movember, and that means I'm out trying to share some education for men's health. Movember is an international charity that supports men's health, particularly men's mental health, testicular cancer, and prostate cancer. So support the men in your life. And make sure it's okay to talk about these things, to make sure you don't be too stubborn, get to the doctors, to get yourself checked out. And if you want to donate to the charity, certainly if you type Movember into any search engine or find it in my socials, the charity certainly well worthwhile. With the mayor out of town, thank you very much for asking me to represent the city at TD Station on Remembrance Day. And just really a shout out to St. Johners who turn out, and they don't just turn out to TD Station. They're, the remembrances on the east side, as Councillor Radwin just mentioned. I know they were well attended on the west side of St. John. And really at TD Station, Councillor Darling was there with me. First of all, to the veterans who still come out, that week I met 2 World War II veterans who are over 100 years old and still going strong. And we certainly thank all the veterans for their sacrifice. I do want to mention our fire department and our police department, who were so well represented at TD Station with the color parties. Certainly, they are our public safety and work on behalf of our citizens, and they did a wonderful job of representing. And finally, the cadets who are there, the young folks who take on these responsibilities and take on that training and that discipline, I was particularly proud at how this worked out. When they called my name to lay the St. John wreath, I met a cadet who's in my homeroom for the last 3 years. And so there were several cadets there from all around the city, a few from St. John High School. So a very proud teacher moment to see the young folks out representing as well. So thank you, and I'm so glad so many St. Johners were taking time, as they say, a pittance in time, to pay respects, because that's why we have the day. So thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. It's always a wonderful event. Deputy, over to you.
Thank you, Worship. First of all, very important, I want to say happy birthday to my wife today.
She'll be thrilled by
I
that.
really hope that you're having a great time at home. I'll be home hopefully shortly. Anyway, on the serious side, St. John has a secondary plan on the way for the north end. So we have a committee set up. We've had a few meetings, and we've had a couple of open houses. Everything's going really, really well. But if anybody has any thoughts or ideas that would help to improve the city of St. John's north end, we would certainly welcome you to go on the shapeyourcitystjohn.ca/North End Neighborhood Plan and, present your thoughts. You can also give me a call directly, or Councillor Ogden's on that committee. So any of those ideas would be welcomed, through that process. We'd certainly like to hear from you. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. I'm glad you brought that up, because the secondary plan is important. It really triggers the growth in an area. There was a secondary plan done for the Southern Peninsula. So, we need the voice of the citizens to shape their own community. So please go on to Shape Your City, call one of the two counselors. That's what should be driving the plan for us. All right, that's it. Next item, City Clerk.
Thank you. And next on the agenda, we have a presentation, item 8.1 on your agenda, and it's from Top Corner Hockey St. John, and our presenter will be Chris Green.
Come on down, Chris Green.
Thank you. Our worship, members of council, thanks for inviting me here today. I just wanted to do a quick little awareness piece as to what Top Corner is and the migration that it's taken over the past 13 years. For those that don't know, it is primarily a hockey program that's run out of the Peter Murray on the west side. So we'll get right to it. In 2012, I came up with this idea, and the idea was to try to support the kids that are getting sponsorships through different organizations. As you may or may not know, I've been involved in hockey at all levels, the highest levels, the lowest levels. And through those roles, I've watched time and time again, the kids get sponsored into hockey. They don't make it. So bouncing ideas around my head, I said, why don't we take a program where, okay, I'm going to take them for a little bit. We'll get them up to a certain level. Then we'll dump them into the stream. So that's kind of where it came from. Obviously, we were going to equip the kids with the gear. We were going to target kids 8 to 12, and we were going to pick 25 kids. We did that for 2013. The very last bullet there, I said about geography. I want to explain that a little bit. It's unfortunate. I shouldn't say unfortunate. We live in the east coast of Canada. Hockey is our sport. Hockey is very expensive. This is not soccer. It's not baseball. Hockey is what the kids see every day. It's not as simple as rolling a $10 ball out into a field and telling them to go play soccer. A kid in hockey nowadays in the mainstream is going to be $2,500 just to get them on the ice. So when I say that, I said the kids here in our part of the world shouldn't be penalized or shouldn't have a barrier just because they were born in this part of the world, right? After the idea came to in my head, I guess, I went around to several youth organizations in town, started pitching the idea. It wasn't really well received, I should say, until I reached the doors of the BGC, Boys and Girls Club at the time. And I pitched the idea, and then they slammed the door behind me, locking me in. It's been a great partnership. So Top Corner is a partner. It's a club program. The club does a really good job for us. They vet all our volunteers. They do all our accounting. They take care of everything that basically I need done outside of the rink. Back to that history bucket, we'll compare it to today and the growth that our program has seen. The main thing I wanted to show here was our budget differences, I guess, from 2012 to 2025. As you can see, our first year's operating budget was about $5,000, which is bumped up to $30,000 last year. Our age range has increased from 12 to 15 years of age, and we've gone from 25 kids to about 60 to 70. Now, when I say indirectly involved in the program, those would include kids that have moved on beyond Top Corner but are still receiving either a subsidy or an equipment donation from Top Corner as they move into mainstream sports. We did increase to 3 hours of ice a week, and I'd like to mention that we are completely volunteer-led. We do not have any paid employees for Top Corner, most of which are here today, which great individuals who show up each week to do that. The individual sponsorship with accountability piece, it's kind of smart wording to say that we, instead of just giving an individual some money and cutting them free into the world, we provide a little bit more accountability when sponsors come in, because you can actually come and you can see the results. You can come on any given Saturday and you can come on the end of the year and we will give you the results. Here's what happened. As opposed to kids that just get lost into the mix and we don't know what happened to them. Did they finish? Did they succeed? So that was kind of the whole idea of that. Some comparisons from what we're doing to mainstream minor hockey. And I say mainstream hockey New Brunswick, that's would be like anything that you see kind of at the rinks with Lancaster or Rossay, those associations. We are a sponsorship-based, non-member pay system. It was the best way that I could describe it. None of our kids in our program pay a dime to be there. We have no stakeholders, so to speak, within the program, whereas minor hockey, they are our membership pay-based program. So, for example, if ice rates go up from the City of St. John, registration goes up within that association or body. We don't have that ability. So I just wanted to make that clear. And then the two differences with the registration, we are very inclusive. We are inclusive, but there's a big but, because there's a strict criteria with our selection process at the start. You can't drive your Escalade over to the rink and then come and play with Top Corner. So the inclusive part with the both are the same. Obviously, minor hockey's first come, first serve. You may have heard some of the associations around do have wait lists. If you don't make it, you don't play. Everything else is pretty much the same, except we get to the bottom where we have mid-level entry development and bottom-level entry development. I'm going to talk about that for a little bit. So Hockey Canada has LDDP, the long-term development plan. And the long-term development plan is a really great tool. I do coach in minor hockey. My young fella's here, he plays, and we follow it. The long-term development plan is basically laid out from a kid in U7 till he's U18. There's no allowance within that plan for a kid that wants to enter midstream. So if we have a 10, 12, 13-year-old that wants to join hockey that's never played before, he gets lost in the mix because he doesn't fit into that plan. So we've developed our own curriculum within the Top Corner program. The volunteers follow it. Basically, U7 skills at a U15 mental level. It's really challenging to do that. It's an accelerated process. It's really hard, but the kids, they seem to buy into it. The original concept has far exceeded where we were going to go. It is the first and only of its kind in Canada. And I know this because in 2019, Hockey Canada came here from Calgary with a film crew, and they did some B-roll footage for the World Junior Tournament that was in Vancouver that year. And we did get on TSN, and they were really blown away by what we were doing. There's no programs that provide transportation, equipment, coaching, food, everything that the kids need in the game, and then bus them back home. So they were quite impressed. As the program grew, it became less of a feeder program for minor and more in-house. And the best way I can describe that is by using the word filter. So we created a filter for the kids who got to a certain level of their skill or talent, and then we cut them loose into the stream. Now, what happened over the years was that filter got overwhelmed because the age-out process was 12, and they were aging out too fast, and the kids weren't able to go into the minor system. So we were finding that there was leftover kids, and that was no good, so we had to find a new direction as to what we were going to do with that. Hence, Team Energy. So Team Energy was created right around 2017-18, and it's basically your NHL to the AHL. The older kids that weren't good enough to go into the minor stream, but were too old and too good to stay in the Top Corner program, well, we created this new team called Energy. All of a sudden, the kids had something to play for. They wanted to go into this program. I keep talking about skill and talent level. There's a social aspect to it as well. Just because I can get an individual who's 13, 14 up to a certain skill level, yeah, you're going to make it. But the social acceptance within that team atmosphere, it doesn't work. To take somebody out of this demographic and all of a sudden throw them into a team. And so we had to start teaching that as well. So Top Corner Energy became more of a team. They competed a little bit. They played in the community league. So that is still going strong today. Some of the evolution that we've had over the past is up there. We did target newcomers, Probably, I'm just going to make a number up, 30% of the enrollment is probably newcomers now. Unhoused, I'm going to come back to that. Transportation was added because we found the kids couldn't get to the rink, so we have our own bus. The females were targeted. You know, we try to go out to the inner city schools and you find that alpha female and you get her, and then all of a sudden we have 10 girls that come play hockey. Rugby program was created to fill the void between hockey and soccer, basically, for a couple months. Unfortunately, the Wolfpack rugby program kind of got sidelined during COVID, and we're gonna try to bring that back. We're just recovering from all that COVID stuff now. The unhoused portion, I want to tell a quick story. We had a female in the program a few years ago, and we found out that she was in middle school and they were living in a car. So, of course, the volunteers, the coaches I have in this program, weren't going to have that. So we were able to scrounge together some support and some funding, and we were able to get her through the program a hotel room for a couple days so she could have a shower and go to middle school. Kind of a side story there, the City of St. John has residency requirements for our ICE bookings. So when we submit our postal codes to prove where everybody lives, I actually had to use the postal code for Garden Street, Irving, for that individual. Now, I'm going to fast forward a couple of years. She's gone on to play AAA hockey, and there are now 2 universities that are interested in her to go play sports. She graduates next year. I'm not going to take all the credit for that, but there is a little aspect of this hockey that did that for her. We try to aim to provide hockey as a lifestyle, not as a program. These kids leave and they're hockey players forever. Last slide before I get into I'm going to show a little video that Hockey Canada did. I didn't put this up here to create an argument over ice rates. That's a debate for another day. But these are where our city ice rate bills, how they've migrated over the years. I thought it was important to show because the first year that we had it was $1,600, and our bill now is $13,000. There are different factors in there. We are renting more ice. Fees have gone up. But I wanted to explain that my grants and all the grants that are available that we qualify for have not gone up. For example, the GNB grant in 2013, that was $5,000, is still $5,000 today. So when we have an 800% increase in our expenses over the last 13 years, the granting process has not gone up. So we are kind of, I don't want to use the word at risk, but Top Corner is in trouble if this keeps climbing. Some of our past grants and sponsors that we've had, I thought it was kind of pertinent to show who the people were. Pro Kids has been a great partner with us for many years, and hopefully going forward. And then that would be our bare bones cost. $22,000 just gets the kids to step on the ice. That's ice fees and insurance. That's it. That's not skate sharpening. That's not hockey laces. That's bare bones. So I kind of thought that was neat to throw that in there. Next slide, we're going to show a little video. It's quick.
I need everybody to go down to that corner. We're just going to do 3 circles. Okay, Coach Steph will tell you when to go. Top Corner, we came up with the idea because we had, I think, a void here in our town where a lot of kids weren't able to play this great game. And I played a lot of hockey growing up, and I know the values I learned from it, and we wanted to give everyone an opportunity to experience it.
St. John does lead the country in child poverty, and there's certain parts of our city that have 50 to 60% child poverty.
We offer everything from transportation to equipment to hockey instruction to overall youth wellness. We bring in guest speakers to talk to the kids, make sure they're behaving on and off the ice.
Without them, I don't think I'd have the confidence to do the things that I do today. I wouldn't be able to step on the ice and feel confident that I can play a good game, but they taught me everything I know, and they just helped me progress.
Our hope would be that these children can learn to play again by the end of the season, to gain those sportsmanship skills, learn what it's like to be part of a team, learn that there's opportunity out there for them. That's our big definition of success for this program.
Our first batch of players is now graduating high school this year, so we're seeing that. I would say almost 100% of our players are still playing, whether in the minor system or for a school team somewhere. Also, I'm hearing from teachers and principals that behaviors have improved. Ultimately, you get stronger youth in our community now because of it.
I wanted to play hockey because I thought that it was really fun and that you have to really work hard and that it'd be something good for me. Sometimes I come on Saturdays to help the little kids, to help volunteer.
Hopefully everybody sticks with it. At the end of the year, the kids who are well enough, whether we grade them or Hockey New Brunswick comes in and does an evaluation, they get slotted into the minor hockey system and supported along the way, make sure that they're successful. If we simply ended, I think the kids were chosen because they didn't have the opportunity to play. So if we ended that opportunity at the end of our season, then this program wouldn't see the success it does. We try to support the kids, make sure that they continue on in their hockey career. So if that means financial support, moral support, whatever they may need, we're here to offer it. It's a lot of satisfaction in this program where you're taking kids who never would have played. And at the end of the season, you're watching them stick handle pucks around, and you know that this program did that. So that pretty much wraps up my presentation on Top Corner. That is our mission statement, and it pretty much outlines what we're doing. If we can kind of break that poverty cycle, maybe one kid at a time through sport, then we win, right? I don't know if I'm allowed to take questions, but
You certainly are, and I got one for you right here. Councillor Ogden, over to you.
Thank you. I know all your volunteers quite well. Some of them better than I sometimes care to want to. But Paul often tells me, we talk all the time about this girl that went to school and her marks improved. Teachers started talking about her social behavior improving. I mean, that's the whole goal. My son a few years ago did a paper on the Swedish hockey system, which is kind of adopting what you're doing now and providing the gear like minor football does. And the kids don't travel, no AAA till they're older and all that stuff. They've tripled the number of players going in the NHL. So the skill level will improve, but the problem that we live in with the city with the highest poverty rate is that kids don't have that opportunity. And you guys are providing an opportunity. You're thinking outside the box. I apologize. Recreation's gone so far downhill in this city compared to when a lot of us played and coached. But what you guys are doing as volunteers is you're bringing it back. We had a policy, I think, for a long time. If there's no demand, we just shut everything down. And actually, that's ass backwards, because you've got to, when you build facilities, you will increase. And what you guys are doing is doing that, providing the gear, picking up kids. Paul tells me all the stories. I've been out a few times. And what you guys are doing is you're really helping to build children. And hopefully, you know, things like trauma and all our street problems and everything can all be solved when to figure out why people are falling in. And you guys are starting right at the right spot. So anything we can do, from my point of view, I would gladly help, because you're really, really answering a great need. And sport is just so important to physical and mental health. So I want to thank all of you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harris?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. Great program. Have you guys ever applied for, try to take advantage of the St. John Community Grants?
that is one that we haven't.
Okay. I was just going to mention that because in tonight's budget, as we'll see a little bit later, there are a couple expanded opportunities for organizations like yours, not just in the community grants process, but also in some recreational fund pieces. So please stay, there's a lot of groups out there that have been applying year after year. And so some of the changes that we're considering will make some of them ineligible. And not that we want to leave anybody out, but we do want to give other organizations an opportunity at that. So, you know, I think that ranges anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 depending on the size of the organization. But to your point, as a nonprofit director myself, those grants kind of stay fixed while everybody else's prices go up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's
finding new ones is key. Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Radwan?
Thank you, Mayor. Great presentation, Chris. Thank you to all of your volunteers. It's really wonderful work. You mentioned that you had applied for New Brunswick grant. Can I ask how you're getting, you mentioned other sponsorship too, but how are you doing that? Are you doing any fundraisers throughout the year? Or?
Most of our, it's an interesting dynamic because we do deal with some kids that are in some type of protective custody, and I don't know if that's the right terms. So right from the get-go, I said, I'm not going to march these kids around town fundraising. So that was out of the question. So basically, it was all just me. And we go out and we apply for grants and we hit the road. So some of those private sponsorships were just shaking hands and figuring it out. The BGC has been really great. I know Amanda's here, and we sit down and we go through grant program, like what do we qualify for, apply for all of them. And Healthy and Inclusive Communities was one of the first grants that we got when we first started. And again, like I said, that was $5,000. And we've received it, I don't know how many times, but we have gotten it several times over the past 13 years. So that's basically how we get our funding. The issue I think I'm running into now is we're going to well too many times. And now that the program seems very established, it's very successful, well, the money is starting to slow down, and I'm starting to get nervous, I guess is where I'm at now. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's very clear. And I mean, I think, you know, I get goosebumps when you talked about the girl that's going on to play. And, you know, I don't think a lot of the time coaches don't realize exactly what they're doing for people. So as an employer, sometimes I'll have people come to me that have almost no work experience or no work experience. And when I see sports or, you know, if they were in music class or anything like that, I gear my questions towards that. I look for references from their coach. Like, this can actually open the door to somebody for sustainability in their life completely from A to Z. So it's extremely important. The other thing is, I think there's another layer here people might not realize, is that you're city staff. And I think as a city staff member, when you're doing good things, we should all try to empower you. So anyway, I will have a side chat. I have a couple of ideas, so see if anything comes to
You're
fruition.
welcome. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sullivan?
Worship, thanks, Chris. A couple of questions. What kind of, I know when you started this, you were kind of the one-man show. It was a social entrepreneur with a great idea, and away you went. And you got a crew of coaches. Do you, what kind of organization, I guess, do you have that's off the ice that's helping you to do all this stuff?
Yeah, so we have, I think this year, we have 16 or 17 volunteers. A few of those are off ice, mostly operational. I need a glove, I need my skates done.
Yeah.
All of the kind of business side of things is basically taken care of with BGC. So all the money accounting, the volunteer vetting, all of that is done. Player selection is done with me and BGC, and then some other people around town. But yeah, and then once it gets rolling at the start of the season, it's all volunteers. The coaches that are on ice are doing off ice stuff. Like, I can't say enough about them. They're there on Saturday from probably 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon on every Saturday. The same people, and it's amazing.
No, that's good. Thank you for that. I'm a little surprised, like, Hockey Canada is good enough to send the film crew, but my summer sport is sailing, and Sail Canada gets money from Sport Canada to support all the groups you support. Newcomers, those who can't afford the sport. And some of that funding flows down to local programs to support those folks. I'm quite surprised, like sailing's a small sport in Canada, as large as hockey is, that Hockey Canada, Hockey New Brunswick doesn't have a couple of bucks to help support a program they don't mind bragging about.
At the time, I was super excited that they were coming to do this film. I was even more excited when we saw it on the Jumbotron at the Vancouver Arena and then the B-roll footage that happened on TSN, but no money came with the video. That was strictly awareness. Hockey New Brunswick has kicked in some funds over the years. Most of their funding was for coach certifications, equipment grants, things like that. Not much cash flow from those organizations. But when you take a coach certification course, it's kind of a write-off for them anyway. Anyway, there's a lot of politics involved when you're dealing with sport at that level. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm well aware.
Yeah.
So I guess part of the reason I asked that first question, and an opportunity here for anybody who's listening or for the folks in the back who have a bigger audience, like, do you have the type of support in your organization, the folks who don't have to be spread thin because they're on the ice for 8 hours and then they're going to a job, who are organizational enough to say, my job's to go knock on Hockey Canada's door, knock on Hockey New Brunswick's door, remind St. John Energy that they have given us some money in the past to do a bit of that hunting? Because there's
Yeah.
lots of people in our community who have those sorts of skills, who might look at your organization and the important work it does and be able to lend some of that kind of volunteer
Yeah,
support.
I see where you're going. The lobbying piece is, yeah, that's how we've got to where we are. I won't lie and say I'm not tired. Like, it's tiring. But yeah, the support on that end of things is probably where we're lacking a little bit. But again, I sit down with the staff at BGC and we go through the grants, and then I'll go attend a dinner and we do the schmoozing thing, and then it just happens. But like I said, it's been drying up over the past, I don't know if the funding's drying up or things are just getting more expensive or both.
Well, it's likely a little bit of A, a little bit of B,
Yeah.
and a whole lot of, you're putting your time into the kids. Like organizations like yours, especially as they get bigger, right? When you're small, 1 hour a week, one group of kids, it can be
Yeah.
one group of coaches looking after it. Now that you're tripled the size, more than tripled the costs, I'm hoping through this presentation, there's a volunteer in the community who says, you know what, I've got that skill set.
Yeah.
I've got some time, because you would be a great organization for somebody to come out and say, I know nothing about hockey, but I know a little bit about knocking on doors and be able to help you out.
Yeah. The sheer data, and again, I'm not a studious person, but the data that's coming out of the last 13 years, these kids that are finishing the program and what's happening to them after would be a gold mine.
You've got an easy story to tell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Chris, I remember going over to Peter Murray when you first started this up in 2012, and I said, there's a lot of potential here. And you brought it to fruition. I mean, when you say the organization has tripled, as Councilor Sutherland said, that's success. That's success. I don't know, I don't have the answer why we lost some, sponsors. But I do know that if you tell us how you can get involved or make a donation or become a sponsor, there's a lot of people watching that might just take you up on that. So how do you do that?
They can, if anyone's interested, I would suggest the easiest way would be to reach out to BGC. You can call them, they will direct you on how to handle that. I'm an open book. You can find me anywhere. If I'm not at the rink, I'm usually at one of the fire stations.
Or at a fire.
I would extend this invitation back to what you said. Any given Saturday, come on over to Peter Murray. Come on down and see it. I coach minor hockey, like mainstream hockey as well. And I will tell you this, the kids on my minor hockey team don't run into the rink like they do on Saturday at Top Corner. The excitement is the same, it's just, it's a little bit of a different level. They get off the bus and they're running. So it's kind of neat to experience that if you want to come over and we'll check it out.
So if there's any businesses out there or just citizens that want to get involved or make a donation, they go through the Boys and Girls Club.
It would be easiest
Yeah.
way to tell them. We do have a Facebook page as well, and there's not Twitter, but X account too. They can find us on, and there's emails there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks for everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Norton?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, Chris. I'd encourage members of council or other people that are interested in the program that think they could generously offer their time or their skill set or their pocketbooks. Right, that's really where we're at with some of these programs. And to give Chris, he's a serial volunteer in our community and obviously has done a lot for well over a decade within a courageous cast behind him that have helped move this program forward. It was an interesting presentation. Sometimes when I hear these presentations, I'm always, maybe a lot of us were ingrained with that, the old SWOT analogy, like what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are your opportunities, and what are your threats? And you kind of go through that acronym. And that's sometimes how you measure, you categorize, or you develop some of your questions. And sometimes nothing filters out of that, but this one, you're really clear in terms of what the strengths are, and that's abundantly clear to the people that are listening. And this council, what are the weaknesses? We see where that is, and I think Councillor Sullivan hit on that as an organization experiences growth and success. You get those growing pains with it. What are the opportunities? I think the opportunities are endless, and I've always thought that education and programs like this is really the Department of Economic Development. Like you want to invest in a prosperous future, do programs like this. This is where it counts, and you illustrated that perfectly with a story about one of your individual players. The threats come to mind. If there was something that this council or this municipality could do, and you were in a position, and without being cliche, it was a bit of a lion's den type of Shark Tank type of analogy. Like, what can we do within the realm of possibility? And we look at escalating costs as it relates to rink time, ice time. We look at space and how we can modify and expand and make that more available to you and the youth in the program. But Chris, if there was a couple things, whether it's low-hanging fruit or whether it's pie in the sky, what are a couple of those things that you need?
In terms of,
And it's not you, but what does a program need?
in the future of the program, so our three biggest barriers would be access to the ice, would be insurance, and it would be equipment. Access to the ice obviously is a city asset. That could be something that comes from here. Equipment doesn't scare me as much because kids grow out of their gear and gear comes in. That's kind of a constant. Whether it's usable or not, that's a debate for over there. Insurance costs are there as well. But again, the biggest barrier is access to ice. This program could grow even bigger. Unfortunately, we are bound to the amount of rinks and ice time that we have. That is the biggest cost for the kids.
Your Worship, I'm over my time, so I'll just end with this. Even an incremental shift in available ice time can spell dividends for you, like has a big impact.
Yep.
Would that be, am I stretching it or is that accurate?
No, that's very accurate.
Okay.
And I think if we spend money on ice time over here, the economic benefits from these kids, if I can get one of these kids to go into minor hockey, they pay registration, they buy more gear, they shop at Doran's. Like, it spills out. I don't have the data for that, but it's real, how that works. But yes, you are correct.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and thank you for the people that are not only behind you, but they're standing in front of you sometimes as well. Thank you.
That's it for questions or comments there, Chris, but I want to say thank you for being here this evening. I want to thank your team. It's a compelling, obviously a compelling group and a compelling concept because you have people, like you say, that have been with you for years and still want to do it. So hopefully there's somebody out there who's watching this. This will give it a little bit of a profile as well. And who would be, you need that organizer, that fundraiser, and that's why that's why you need to get on
Thank you very much.
Exactly. And recreation is important to the city and it's important to this council. We now have, over the last, this council every year has put more and more money into recreation. We're working on, adding out to the field house with an arts and rec center. It is an important subject. I think we get it. But I think what we need to do is make sure that other people get it. And you being here tonight and telling those stories is fantastic because, that message goes out to everyone. So
I could talk for hours.
I know that, but it's been great to have you here and just be, to give us those highlights tonight. So really appreciate it. And we'll all try to get your message out on our social media, to get people organized and to ask people to volunteer. I know people love hockey here. And so this is especially for people who have even retired, it's be great. I'm sure it's a feel good. It's a real feel good story. Just hearing you talk about it's been great. So thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, there's one more question.
One more?
Yeah,
Councillor Sullivan.
Sorry, not a question. Something Councillor Norton was mentioning that got me thinking. So just throwing it for council and staff who might be listening, because staff are always listening. As a teacher, this Friday, there's no school for kids. I don't know how much our ice in the city is used. If other organizations suddenly rent ice that we don't use. I know we have flash sales for ice sometimes on unused ice. I would think there might be an opportunity there with unused ice the city is using that might be available. You happen to be a firefighter, so weekends could be any time, that there might be opportunities there that doesn't, because this gets me a kick under the table if I say give you money, but if we can give you some ice that we're not using and make it available to you, I'm sure it could cut into that money. So I'm just going to float that out loud to give a hint to our staff and maybe have a conversation with you folks to see if that opportunity is there.
Yeah, I'm open to conversations. The only problem I would see with that is the transportation piece and the logistics of getting these kids from point A to point B.
Well, I would see flash sales might be a little tough because it's short term.
Yeah.
But the school calendar is published in
Very
June for the following year. And if you've got, for example, if this Friday, instead of Saturday, which is primetime ice, if it was this Friday instead, which is not primetime, if you can make that organizational shift a little bit ahead and combine it. See, the CAO made a mistake and he nodded. I think there's an opportunity there.
Did you want to speak?
Through your worship, we'll take that away and have a discussion as staff internally and can reach out to Mr. Green.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
All right.
Sorry, Mr. Green's back there. I'm Chris. Anyway, thank you.
All right, in that case, Chris, thanks for being here. All right, I'll take a motion to receive for information. Thank you, Councillor Darling and Councillor Radwan. On the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so for next item, which is, Councillor, I'll get you to announce it.
Yeah, so the next item, your worship, is 10.1. It's a zoning bylaw text amendment respecting crematorium use within the medium industrial zone. And we do have 3 people that have declared a conflict and will be removing themselves. So
John,
Deputy Mayor will take over as chair.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, next item then?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So we will be discussing 10.1, zoning bylaw text amendment, crematorium use within medium industrial zone. And this particular zoning does have 2 resolutions required, and I don't know if you'll be handing this off to the commissioner to give a brief
Over to Commissioner.
description.
Amy?
Thank you, Deputy and members of council. Before you this evening for third reading is a zoning bylaw text amendment submitted by St. John Industrial Parks for an amendment that would establish a crematorium use as a permitted use in the medium industrial zone. The application received first and second reading on November 3rd, following the required public hearing, and I can confirm that all legislative requirements of the Community Planning Act have been met, and the item is now before you to move forward with third reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Can you read the-
Yeah, so Deputy, 2 resolutions are required here. The first one would be to approve this for third reading by entirety and approve third reading by title.
Can I get a motion to? Okay, Councilor Darby, Councilor Ayers. On the question, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion's carried.
And this is titled, "A Law to Amend the Zoning Bylaw of the City of St. John, be it enacted by the City of St. John Common Council convened as follows. The zoning bylaw of the City of St. John enacted on the 15th day of December 2014 is amended by 1, adding the definition for crematorium as follows in alphabetical order at section 3.1. Crematorium means a development where the buildings or structures are used to cremate human or animal remains. Number 2, adding section 4.2, the following words in alphabetical order under the following headings. Use, crematorium, minimum number required of parking spaces, 1 per 50 square meters. Number 3, adding section 12, the following words in alphabetical order under the following headings of table 12.1. Use, crematorium, zone permitted, IM. Number 4, adding in alphabetical order the list in subsection 12.2.1, the word crematorium, subject to paragraph 12.22C. And number 5, adding to subsection 12.22 the following. 12.22C, a crematorium permitted as a main use in subsection 12.21 shall be subject to a minimum separation distance of 300 meters from lots containing a dwelling, units, daycare, home, neighborhood, or center, school K to 8, or school 9 to 12. And now a motion by title.
Can I get a motion by title? Councilor Long, Councilor Stewart, on the question, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion's carried.
A law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John.
All right, City Clerk, next item.
Thank you. And next is item 10.2, and this is a public presentation with respect to a proposed municipal plan amendment for Summit Drive / Clint Drive.
Commissioner Poffenroff, over to you to read this into the minutes.
Thank you, Your Worship. A public presentation is a procedural requirement under the Provincial Community Planning Act for municipal plan amendment applications. This evening's public presentation is for a site at the end of Summit and Clint Drive, and it commences a 30-day public review period during which members of the public may provide written submissions on the application as an early step in the process. Any submissions received will come back to council following the close of the 30-day public review period for consideration before moving forward in the process. Following the 30-day review period, it is anticipated that on January 12th, Common Council will refer the application to the Planning Advisory Committee for review and recommendation. Given this, the application is tentatively scheduled for the January 20th Planning Advisory Committee meeting and public hearing at the Common Council meeting at the beginning of February in 2026. For Council's information, over the last few days, there was some misinformation out on social media about that the application was for a mini home development. This social media has been since corrected, but we wanted to clarify that the proposal is to extend the Lakewood Heights development through low-rise residential building types, including single-family homes. So to confirm, also, this is only the first step in the process during which the public may submit comments on the proposal. After the comment period, the application will proceed through the PAC and council processes for rezoning, which would rezone the land to the low-rise residential zone if approved. With that as an introduction, I will now read into the public record a copy of the public notice that commences the 30-day public review period, and you can see on the screen the location of the subject property. Public notice is hereby given that the Common Council of the City of St. John intends to consider an amendment to the municipal development plan that would, 1, redesignate on Schedule A of the municipal development plan land having an approximate area of 18 hectares identified as a portion of PID 003-11126 from rural resource area and park and natural area to stable area as illustrated. And 2, redesignate on Schedule B of the municipal development plan land having an approximate area of 18 hectares identified as a portion of PID 003-11126 from rural resource and park and natural area to stable residential, and extend the boundary of the primary development area as illustrated on the screen. The reason for the change is to permit an expansion of the existing low-rise neighborhood, which would include approximately 219 low-rise lots and the expansion of Summit Drive and Clint Drive. Written objections to the proposed amendment may be made to council by December 17th, and inquiries may be made to the office of the city clerk or Growth and Community Services in City Hall between 8:30 and 4:30, Monday through Friday. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just reading it into the minutes, Councillor. Just reading it into the minutes, that's it.
I can't say nothing.
Well, she's just, no, there's no discussion on it. She's just,
I want to ask a question about interpretation of a decision. Can I do that?
no, I don't think so. No, because she's, no, because we're just making the announcement tonight. There's no motion or anything for it. Yep.
But there was changes to the PAC that was voted on here by council. And I want it clarified, I would like to have it clarified for the public when it comes to PAC. I don't see anything wrong with asking that, really.
Okay.
But if you say I can't, then you're the boss.
I'm just checking here, hang on.
Just to clarify, that the councillor's question relates to whether or not there's a public hearing at PAC? Is that the ultimately the question?
That part, but can the public speak at PAC? That's a question I want.
Okay. Maybe I'll ask
Thank you.
Director Nalavde to speak to that.
Through the chair to Councillor, at the PAC, public will be able to send in letters. The public hearing will be at council. So they can come and attend the council and speak at council.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, City Clerk, next item.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next on the agenda is item 10.3, the 2026 Business Improvement Area Levy Amendment.
Okay, and that's over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as council will recall, Uptown St. John submitted its 2026 BIA, Business Improvement Area budget for council's consideration and approval. The total budget of approximately $539,000 would maintain the current BIA levy rate of 16 cents for each $100 of assessed value on non-residential property within the BIA. Our office has completed all the required notices, including newspaper and online, and no written objections have been received. We do have Executive Director Nancy Tissington online, and I do see her there, in case there are any questions. But council may now proceed with approving the budget first. We need a motion for that. And then approving first and second reading of the BIA bylaw.
Okay, Deputy. Move the budget and Councillor Killen. Okay, so I've got a mover and a seconder on that. So all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
And we would now require motions to approve the bylaw reading. So a motion for first reading by title.
First reading by title, Councillor Harris and Councillor Ogden on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And I'll take a motion to approve.
I just have to read out.
Sorry.
Excuse me, have to read out the title only in this case. Law to amend bylaw BIA number 2, business improvement levy bylaw.
Okay, I'll take a motion to approve second reading by title. Councillor Stewart and Councillor Sullivan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
A law to amend bylaw number BIA 2, business improvement levy bylaw.
Okay, next item, City Clerk.
Next item would be 11.1 on your agenda. This is a notice of motion submitted by Councillor Ogden with respect to proposal for Fort Howe and Robertson Square.
Over to you, Councillor Ogden, to read your motion.
Okay, thank you. That City Council directs city staff to investigate and prepare a report on, 1, the potential reopening of Rockland Road, that's off of Main Street, as a pedestrian pathway to the top of Fort Howe. Include design considerations for accessibility, safety, and interpretive elements. Number 2, the creation of a commemorative site at Fort Howe recognizing the friendship treaties between the Crown and the Wabanaki peoples, with the intent for it to serve as a symbol of learning, respect, and truth and reconciliation overlooking the harbor and city. 3, the feasibility of reopening the wharf at Robertson Square, which the city has refurbished the square, on Bridge Street for use by the riverboat from St. John Marina, including necessary infrastructure assessments and potential partnerships. The possibility, this is number 4, of extending tram service from the cruise ship terminals along Main Street to Robertson Square to facilitate riverboat connections and enhance visitor experiences in the downtown area.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So that'll be on the docket in 2 weeks for discussion. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is item 12.1, a business matter. It's community grants revised program and policy.
Over to you, Deputy, for the introduction.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Growth Committee endorsed proposed changes to the Community Grants Program on the advice of the Community Grants Committee and our staff, and directed the CAO to bring an updated community grants policy to Common Council that incorporates these changes. So I'm pleased to introduce our Community Development Supervisor, Lori Lambert, to walk us through the updated Community Grants Program policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. So as mentioned, I'm here to provide the highlights of our new community grants policy. This new policy stems from 9 recommendations generated through an evaluation of the program that was conducted earlier this year and recently endorsed by our Growth Committee. So first of all, why an evaluation? Well, it's been 10 years since the program was launched in 2015, and each year the committee faces a growing demand of requests from a modest grant budget. This policy aims to refine our grant program to maximize community impact within our means, our responsibilities, and our priorities. So what we discovered when we did our evaluation was that the program's current eligibility criteria and the objectives were far too broad. The grant was open to any and every organization who felt their service or activity benefited the community in some way. And this led to over 175 different organizations applying, representing over 80 different service areas, many of which were out of scope. When we did the math, we found that we had a 46% denial rate. Funding requests are 2.5 times greater than what we award. And many requests were for larger amounts exceeding $10,000. So in order to address many of these challenges, the new policy tightens up our eligibility criteria, making sure that grants support relevant activities and services that maximize community benefit and support sustainability, not dependence. So we introduced grant sectors. What I want to emphasize is that the Community Grants Program was developed as an outcome of Play SJ to support a community development model for recreation and community services. Our grant recipients serve as service providers. It's important that the activities and services they offer align with the city's responsibilities and priorities. And so for this reason, we introduce 4 grant sectors. First, we have our inclusive community to enhance accessibility, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and strengthen residents' sense of belonging. The second is vibrant community sector to promote, preserve, and enhance local art, culture, and heritage. Third is our green community sector to promote the use, preservation, and sustainability of existing parks and trails and green spaces and the beautification of public spaces. And fourth is our engaged community sector to improve individual and community wellness through participation in sport, recreation, cultural, and community activities. So we feel that the sectors give clear purpose and objectives to make the outcomes more measurable. And it also minimizes applications that do not align. Finally, we introduced funding tiers. The current program allows for any group to apply for amounts up to $25,000 for their operations, project, or event. The new tiers provide eligible ranges based on the applicant's budget. Tier 1 is for small groups and initiatives, awarding between $1,000 and $5,000. Tier 2 for medium-sized initiatives awarding between $5,000 and $10,000. And Tier 3 is the highest tier, awarding between $10,000 and $20,000 for operations and initiatives with the largest budgets, capacity, and reach. Amounts are awarded based on size and capacity of applicants, and this reduces the gap between the demand or expectation and the awarded amount. So with these policy changes to eligibility, the addition of new grant sectors and funding tiers, it is our hope that the new community grants program will alleviate some of the identified challenges so that the program can continue to deliver positive outcomes for the community. Pending Council's approval this evening of the policy, the program will be launched next month following the approval of the operating budget. The call for applications will go out in a public service advisory as usual, noting the program changes. Direct emails will be sent to past recipients informing them of the changes, and there is a new program guide with all information on eligibility, funding tiers, and grant sectors, and that will be available on our city's website. And there will be a video that will provide some highlights of the changes and guide users through the new process. That kind of summarizes everything. I think so I'll just turn it back over to you, Your Worship, if there are any questions.
Do have a few questions. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Thank you, Lori. I'd love to move the recommendations for the community grants policy as attached in MC 2025-260.
Okay, can I get a seconder? Councillor Stewart, perfect. Councillor Ogden, over to you.
Yeah, Councillor Stewart and I have been on this committee going on 5 years now, and I just wanted to share with the public some things. We have a really good staff. These are really great ideas, details, logistics. I wouldn't argue with any of them. But I think people should know that almost all the organizations we deal with are volunteers, and it's really hard to say no, just like Top Corner Hockey, that they're doing such good in the community. And when it comes to poverty and sports and those types of things, I think St. John, our Parks and Rec department wouldn't even exist without volunteers. I think in St. John, we do such a good job as volunteers. But where I always get frustrated is when the province says, St. John, Moncton, Fredericton, we'll compare the three of you. Well, you can't compare KV to St. John. You can't compare Dieppe, Riverview, and Moncton to St. John, nor Fredericton, because the wealth is much greater, the incomes are higher, the benefits are higher, and they have not had. We have a homeless issue, but we have generational poverty in St. John that we're trying to beat. And all these volunteers, these organizations, all want to do better for the city. And I get so frustrated that for 65 years, $7 million a year goes to the province called our industrial tax. And we're basically the worst off in Canada in that sense, having a high poverty rate, but we generate lots of taxes. We're not our hands are tied behind our back because we don't get our post-secondary money that the other cities get, and we don't get our industrial tax money. And so when you're down on the ground dealing with issues in the city, and we say, why have we fallen behind? Why are we behind? Why do we have to say no to all these volunteers? The citizens should know that there's enough tax money in this city. It's not staying here. And when we get frustrated and see it, then people should, speak up and say, why is our money not staying in St. John? Why is it we don't have a 10,000 university students like Fredericton has? It's all provincial tax money. So I just have nothing but good to say for what this committee done. It's really frustrating when you're debating whether you should, somebody wants to feed children or not. We shouldn't be having those arguments with that much tax money in this city. So I want to thank you for what you do.
Thank you. I think that was supposed to be a high note there. That you're doing good work. Councillor Sullivan?
Thanks, Your Worship. I really appreciate the fact that the policy's been updated, looked at. I mean, it's a matter of course what we should be doing. I have one real teeny tiny concern. Just digging into the policy. So when you're looking at target populations, and I was reading through the list of the target populations, it all kind of makes sense to me. Low-income residents, ethnocultural, Indigenous peoples, persons with disabilities, seniors, 2SLGB, QIA+, activities are underrepresented female participation. But given that we hit top corner here, the one piece that youth. Now, that being said, low-income youth, top corner would fall under low-income residents, but just the fact that they weren't kind of pointed out. Because conversely to that, because seniors is pointed out, there are a lot of very well-heeled seniors in the city of St. John who don't need our financial support as well. So as long as it's interpreted as low-income residents, particularly youth and seniors, I can buy that. But just the fact that it wasn't pointed out is a small concern.
So if I may, through your worship to the councillor, so there is a reason why youth wasn't put in. We define target populations as populations who face barriers. So in addition to our all-inclusive community, our residents, our families, our youth, and our adults, so any of those events or initiatives that would benefit the greater community, we do have target populations as well, and they are defined as identified populations who face additional barriers to participation or access. So if you consider that, for example, yes, we would consider low income, whether it's youth or adults or that kind of thing. But for seniors, they may face mobility challenges. They may face other challenges, transportation, income. They're kind of all interwoven together. But certainly, if there was a youth serving program, particularly for low-income residents, it would absolutely be considered. But we didn't include youth just because it was almost part of the greater community, which the community grants would serve anyway. But particularly that these target populations are those we feel face barriers to participation or access.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. I disagree in that I think, and the top corner folks gave some very good examples of youth who would face all sorts of barriers. I know that the folks sitting around this table who sit on the committee aren't going to look at this list and say that disqualifies youth. But I do think low-income or at-risk youth, that would probably be a better term, because we do have youth, and we have youth in the community who face barriers because they are at risk, not entirely attached to income. That is a concern. So 99.9% of this I like. I'll vote in favor of it, but I am happy to be on the record to say If there's a small revision to be made, I would love to see at-risk youth added into the target populations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Good point. Councillor Redwan, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Lori. I just wanted to check and see. So obviously there's your community grants, and then we also have art grants as well. It looks like within this, if somebody got an art grant, they would not be able to apply for a community grant. Is that right? Is that how am I understanding it correctly?
Yeah, so part of the eligibility would mean that if you already receive funding from the municipality, whether it be through a grant or through another means, a service agreement, that kind of thing, then that does make you ineligible for grant.
Yeah, and I know I've had this conversation with CFO Fudge before, but this is something that I had hoped that we would end up changing. And I'll tell you why. We seem to be giving out grants that are less and less amounts to different groups. And some of these groups are putting on programs. And a lot of the time, like, they could end up doing some sort of program within the community, and then they'll end up doing an arts program. And I've seen over the years, maybe it's people getting 20,000 and now they're only getting 5, but they have the capacity to put out other programs. So I'd kind of hoped, and I'm not going to vote against this, but I'm kind of hoping that staff might change it and think about putting in a cap. So, for example, if somebody ended up getting $10,000 and they no longer could get any more funds from anywhere within our grants. But I just see it as a bit of it's a missed opportunity if we don't allow, because a lot of these groups are doing a lot of these activities and programs in the community, and they have capacity to do multiple things. So I think that we're kind of maybe missing out on community programming that could be out there if we're not allowing them to apply for arts as well. So anyway, I'll just leave it with you. I'm going to support it, Lori, but I'm hoping that we'll have some sort of a tweak in the future.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harris?
Thank you, Mayor.
Excuse me, sorry. Could I respond to the
Oh.
Sure,
comment?
go ahead, Lori.
Through your worship. So the community arts program, the community arts board program, I mean, it's specific to the arts community. So, fortunately, there is that piece of the pie already cut out for that arts community. The same doesn't apply to many other community groups in the nonprofit industry, if you will. So the point I guess I'm trying to make is this allows for anyone and everyone, including the arts sector, to apply for one or the other, which many other groups do not get the opportunity to do. So we do have under the vibrant community sector, the ability for arts groups to be able to apply for operational funding, which would be substantially more than the smaller art grants that they would get for programming. So I think it opens the doors to more programming potential through the operating budget or through the operating grant that they could apply for.
Agreement, like if you looked at the Y, for an example, they put on a lot of different programs, and they could end up tapping in and doing an art program where they might be teaching people how to paint, for example. So they could be tapping into both, for example. Like that's just one example of a great business that does a whole lot of all-encompassing things. They might be doing a cultural event, but then they might do an art event where it's bringing community together to learn how to produce art. But anyway, just a food for thought.
Thanks, Lori, though, for that explanation. Councillor Harris?
Just two quick things, Mayor. Thank you. Lori, for the different tiers of funding, with the increased reporting expectations, which I think are good, hopefully we're not hitting the tier 1 with the same expectations as we've been hitting tier 3. Because if we're giving out $1,000 versus $15,000, I don't want an organization that's really hamstrung to deliver on a few events a year, and this is one of them, to have to go out and find an accountant to dot their I. You know what I mean? I'm just curious. That's one part.
Okay, so through your worship to the councillor, So I'll give an example for Tier 3 funding. We require financial statements, which, you know, to the tune of, you know, an accountant's bill, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with. It's not cheap to do. So if you are at that level of Tier 3 and you're requesting an amount upwards of $20,000, then we do expect you to prove financial need. And so, no, the expectations wouldn't be the same if we were to give $2,000 to a smaller community group. So I think the ranges and the tiers follow that line so that it, you know, they set those expectations. And conversely, we wouldn't have a smaller entity applying for, you know, $20,000 when they only operate on a very small budget and they have expectations that exceed their capacity.
Yep, fair enough. That's a good clarification. The other part is alignment. So one of the things, having worked in the nonprofit sector now for almost 10 years, is that there's a lot of really good intentions. There's good community groups that spring up, but the thing that separates them from organizations that have staying power is their due diligence and their alignment with what else is going on around them. You think of certain organizations where there's certain areas of need where there's just a lot of activity and a lot of organizations active, food security being one. What does this committee do, or does it do anything to get outside insight from what the real need in the community is? Because it's one thing to start an organization, get a bunch of people volunteered and demonstrate, hey, we're going to go do this thing. And it's another thing to have mature organizations. I'm thinking of the Community Foundation or United Way, and there's a few others that I would think of that really have gauged the community well and done a lot of strategic planning that can say, hey, you know what? This organization is one of many that are already active here. Perceived need is low or perceived need is high. We do need more. Like, what's that conversation look like? Because not all asks are equal, but every organization is going to say that our need is great. Right?
Oh, absolutely. Through your worship to the councillor, those are the ones that are difficult. And as Councillor Ogden had alluded to, how do you place, you know, a community garden higher than a, you know, another food security initiative, or how, you know, what do you place a higher value on? So what we do have is a new matrix, an evaluation matrix to go by, where it measures automatically based on the applicant's responses. It'll automatically generate a number out of 60 that will identify how strong of an organization are you? How many years have you been operating?
Right.
What kind of capacity do you have? What's your organizational structure? What kind of board do you have? So that it protects them and us when we're distributing money. You know, if you've only been in operations for a year or two, you may have a great idea, but we also have to protect taxpayer money. So that means that we have to have a mechanism in place to vet all of those. So once it goes through that evaluation matrix, then it makes its way to the Community Grant Committee. And that's the time that, you know, we get to debate. And, you know, in the 7 out of 10 years that I've done this, I'm always both relieved and surprised and amazed that we can have, you know, a committee of 6 or 7 people around the table of all different, you know, thoughts and whatever, and we all come to the same conclusions at the end of the day. It's always, you know, we all agree at the end of the day with the amounts that we've proposed and awarded. So it's not an easy process, but, you know, this new policy hopefully provides a little bit more guideline and structure to, you know, for folks to be accountable for what they're pitching, and it's not just an idea, that you have the capacity to deliver. So that's important too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that looks like that's it, Lori. So I have the motions on the floor. It's been moved and seconded, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you for being here this evening. All right, next item, City Clerk.
Next item, Your Worship, is 13.1, Growth Committee submission regarding updates and transition plan from City of St. John Succeed and Stay immigration strategy to Pathways to Belonging regional immigration strategy.
Deputy, over to you for the intro.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm pleased to bring forth the recommendation from the Growth Committee on endorsing the new Pathways to Belonging regional immigration strategy and transition our current Succeed and Stay immigration strategy to a regional approach. The city and our partners are actively involved in supporting newcomers, and this is another important step forward to continue to make St. John and our broader region even more welcoming for our growing and vibrant immigrant community. So if there's any questions for staff, our Growth Officer Ronald Cata is available, and I'm very pleased to move the recommendation.
Councillor Killam is going to second it. And on the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Ronald, for being here tonight. Next item, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next is item 13.2, a submission by the Finance Committee with respect to the 2026 General Fund operating budget.
Councillor Sullivan, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. For an introduction to council tonight of our 2026 operating budget, the Finance Committee reviewed the 2026 general operating budget and voted its unanimous approval to send to council. This evening, the Finance Committee asked council to receive and file the general operating budget, and over the next couple of weeks, make any inquiries that you may need to do to inform yourselves prior to our next meeting, when we will ask council to approve the budget on December 1st. A few highlights at a high level. Our 2026 general operating budget reflects a modern city on the move with purpose and confidence. By following our long-term strategic financial plan, if we approve this budget, this council will have reduced the property tax rate in St. John by 25 cents over this council's term. In addition, the city's debt service ratio, which is the percentage of the budget we spend paying for debt, is the strongest it has been in generations. Approving this budget will have moved our long-term debt from about $120 million in 2014 to almost $60 million next year.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. So some high-level things, a little bit of mix between the operating budget and the capital budget, which will also be before us next meeting for approval. 1.5 cents reduction in the tax rate. I mentioned our long-term debt reduction. What that means is we have $1.3 million more next year for services that we're not paying on interest and debt. Parks and Recreation investments, another $3 million for the catalytic multiplex project. So we will have $12 million in our reserve fund to help that move forward. The capital budget has several investments in recreation. The Cove, which is Harbor Passage extension, completing upgrades at Rainbow Park, renewal of playground equipment on Ellerdale Street, funding for a new tot lot at Grant Crescent, Memorial Field improvements, funding for a new cricket field. The operating budget includes funding for design and master plan for Seaside Park, funding for Shamrock Park tennis courts design, funding for conceptual design and a plan for St. Peter's Ball Field. The general operating budget also introduces a new $100,000 recreation fund that will allow council to support making small recreation improvements in their wards. A policy and program will be developed as part of the Work Plan 2026 to help roll that out. Finally, the 2026 general operating budget includes a full-time position for East Side Recreation Coordinator to help coordinate and facilitate addressing community recreation supports on the East Side. This budget also includes investment in the Housing for All strategy for $2.1 million, as well as $3.2 million in funding for the 2026 actions in the Housing Accelerator Fund. The operating budget includes $1.2 million in benefits from St. John Energy because of the Birch Hill Wind Farm, because of our ownership, and that increases by $200,000 next year over this year. Roads and sidewalks were key themes heard from council. Between the general operating and the capital fund, there's almost $20 million in investments associated with asphalt, curbs, sidewalks, street reconstructions, and storm sewer. The capital budget also includes funding for the sidewalk sheriff and 3 other new sidewalk plows. Council also requested investments in traffic calming. The capital budget has 2 new city transit buses. One of my favorites is continuation of the roundabout strategy. So next year would be the building of a new roundabout at the intersection of Loch Lomond Road and the airport arterial, subject to matching funds from the province, while we design the roundabout to be done in the following years. We continue that strategy. Council asked for investments for a cleaner city and to bolster bylaw enforcement. The 2026 general operating budget funds a new full-time position for a community standards coordinator to oversee files on unsightly premises, zoning and compliance, as well as unsightly buildings and properties. In addition, a new full-time position for an assistant building inspector is included in the budget, who will be assigned to substandard units, substandard buildings, as well as vacant building files. Finally, the operating budget will see the extension of 3 positions for another 2 years to support the bylaw enforcement and community enhancement project. There is also $1 million in funding from reserves for additional community resiliency support, for which staff will provide details in a public presentation in the coming weeks. Council asked for improvements to the city's website. $100,000 in funds have been allocated to communications to seek improvements in website upgrades for better public communications. And finally, late in the year, council referred to the CAO to review the governance of St. John Police, and funds are included in the operating budget to support that review. With that update, this is just a receive and file, but we certainly have staff available if you have any questions. I'll move the receive and file.
Thank you, Councillor, and seconded by the Deputy. Councillor Harris, over to you for a question.
Just one question while I'm here, because there's a lot to dig into, but the renewal of the Ellerdale playground being outside the utility fund, one, why? And I guess the second question is there anything specific associated with that term renewal? I guess maybe they've been in here before. I get the update to the playground where the new school's going into South End, but being here, because that's a bit of a unique piece, but this one kind of stuck out to me as a bit of a unique one, so just curious who the staff is, or potentially yourself, Councillor Sullivan, if you know, go ahead.
No, I would, for that staff, it'd probably be Mr. Hugenholtz, I would think.
Yes, yeah, he can start it off and I can add anything may be needed.
Through you, Your Worship, to the councillor, there's no real specific magic with that wording. The intent is that very likely all of that equipment will be renewed, replaced with new. So we don't have a detailed design at the moment, but that will be part of the RFP or the tender that we ultimately put out this year.
Okay. Well, you'll be getting some emails from all these other ones as well. So anyway, thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ogden, you had a question?
Yeah, when we talked about the police department, do we have a date yet on where because the public's really worried about our police department. And I'm just wondering, we said that we're looking at it, but do we have a date when we're going to make people more comfortable with our police department, like what we're going to do with it? Because it seems like police commission, whether it is there or not, is in limbo, and people a lot of people talk about our police department. Mr. Sullivan, or?
Through you, Your Worship, to the councillor, from a budget perspective, I would suggest that being such a significant decision for the city, it not be one to be rushed into, which is why we're allocating funds to support management in their decision. So I would think that will come as part of the 2026 work plan. Certainly, and I can't speak for staff, but given the support around the council for that referral, I think once the budget is passed, if that stays as part of the budget, that staff would then start to action it.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. I just want to say I love the budget. I sit on finance. I love the budget because all of us can see our what we've asked for in the budget. It's such a positive budget. when I think about the debt reduction, the servicing, and what we're adding in recreation. Recreation has gone down over the years, but this team has been building it up because we have our structural budget in place, because we've gone through the hopper, exercise, and because we're watching how we spend our money. We have 10 financial policies. And so all of these things coming together are providing us with this money as we move forward. So it's been great, Councillor.
Sure, just to wrap it up, throw out a few thank yous, certainly to the finance staff, but staff throughout the organization, in council. We have an incredibly robust budget process now.
We do.
That includes, Shape Your City started with a couple of responses online, and we're at the point now where our results are almost statistically significant, which for those statisticians out there is quite a feat for an online survey. And so when we take, this budget really reflects our strategic long-term plan, our financial plan, Move SJ, Play SJ, the feedback we've gotten from the public and the feedback we've gotten from around the Horseshoe. When I mention from time to time that our staff is always listening, they are better than Siri. They are always listening. And all the stuff we talk about all year long gets fed in, and really that's reflected in what we see before us tonight. So thanks to staff, certainly thanks to the public for engaging, because it is now a conversation that usually starts in June, and here we are almost in December to finish it up.
Okay, so we've got the motion on the floor. We're going to receive it, and we're going to read it, and we're going to think about it, and we're going to, if we have any input in it, we want to go forward with that. So I'm going to, call the question. So. Okay, yeah. So on the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is 13.3, another submission by Finance Committee with respect to 2026 Utility Fund Operating Budget.
Councillor Sullivan, back to you for this one as well.
Thank you, Your Worship. Also for our receive and file tonight, we have the 2026 Utility Fund Budget. And some highlights from that is there's no new borrowing. Capital projects that we do on the utility, on the water utility, is $7 million from pay-as-you-go. So we're not borrowing money to do that $7 million in infrastructure. We have had 8 years with no increase in rates, but subject to the same inflationary pressures, we do have a rate increasing by $1.50 a month for the flat rate, which is $18 a year. Which I probably should have mentioned as we tie that in with our 1.5 cent tax rate reduction with the provincial freeze and property assessment rates. That's actually a real reduction in taxes. So in my house, my taxes are going to go down by about $50 or $60, and my water rate's going to go up by 18. So, it's a net supper at deluxe. Industrial rates are self-sufficient. I know council knows this, but it's important to remind the public every year. We set industrial rates by bylaw, and they recover the cost of the water that's used, the electricity that's used to pump the water, the pipes that are in the ground, the staff that it takes to administer it. It is a full cost recovery basis. And the major initiatives for next year include a roadmap to universal metering and a water master plan. I thought Commissioner Fogan was the water master. Anyway, staff are here and happy to answer any questions, and it will be before us in 2 weeks for approval.
Okay. Did you move that? Did you tell me? Okay. So it's been moved and seconded, and I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Excellent. Next item, City Clerk.
Next, we have our items that came from Committee of the Whole. So the first one would be the 2022 Memorial Cup Legacy Fund Transfer. And the resolution would read that the city enter into an agreement with 2022 Memorial Cup St. John Host Company, Inc. and St. John Hockey Fund Limited DBA St. John Sea Dogs Foundation, the foundation, generally in the form as presented to Committee of the Whole at its meeting held on November 17th, 2025, regarding the transfer of a legacy fund from MCSJ to the foundation for the purpose of maintaining an outdoor ball hockey arena as contemplated under a 2022 donation agreement between the city and MCSJ, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the said agreement and any other documents ancillary thereto.
Deputy's moving that. Can I get a seconder on it? Counselor Stewart, on the question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is 17.2, and this is another Committee of the Whole recommendation with respect to extension of group benefit coverage to council members. And the resolution would read that group benefit coverage be extended on a voluntary basis to council members with a cost-sharing arrangement of 75% paid by the city and 25% paid by the council member, commencing with the 2026 operating budget as of January 1st, 2026.
Okay, I'll take a move. Deputy? Counselor Lowe? On the question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
And the final item from Committee of the Whole is a recommendation with respect to interim chief administrative officer. The resolution would read that Common Council endorse the appointment of Kevin Fudge, who currently holds the position of chief financial officer, chief of staff with the City of St. John, as the interim chief administrative officer effective December 12, 2025, through to the selection and commencement of employment date of a permanent chief administrative officer.
Counselor Lowe and Counselor Norton? On the question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. CFO Fudge, were you aware of this? Excellent. Well, congratulations and good luck, as they say. Counselor Lowe, over to you. Thank you, Counselor.